Greetings pimps. Today we will be discussing the Wuz Kangz phenomenon. Most people who click this video know what it is but have never thought about the reasoning behind its existence. It must first be said that this is being used in this video as a cover-all for everyone, not just Africans. Anyone who makes up or exaggerates things from the past mostly for emotional effect is on the chopping block here. We are not here to discuss examples too in depth, although there will be some, but more so why humanity in general has a weird obsession with claiming people in the past did things they didn't. Now first and foremost we can address the obvious namesake of this discussion, the classic Wuz Kangz. People like to claim their ancestors built the pyramids or whatnot when in reality this was done by Egyptians who were of Middle Eastern descent, not African. In fact, slaves did not even build the pyramids but volunteers who wanted to be part of something larger than themselves, so to speak. At the end of the day, however, it doesn't matter either way, as there is no logical reasoning to argue over who did what. The explanation is there, and if one wants to delude themselves into believing something else, so be it. NPCs cannot think or be creative, so there is no reason to attempt to get them to do so. Another example is worldwide slavery. Everybody tries to race to the bottom and virtue signal about what happened to people they never met or talked to and frankly don't actually care about. They are just using them for virtue signal points. Yes, at some point most people on this earth had ancestors affected negatively by slavery, regardless if they were one or not. To argue over what slaves at what time were treated the worst is also a waste of breath and nothing more than a way to prove you are an NPC who bases their thoughts on emotion and authority instead of logic. Anyone with a brain stem can realize that such a conversation could never be objective, thus is a waste of time to attempt. Discussing how slaves throughout history were treated and things that happened to them is also a dead end, as slavery is of course objectively immoral. There is no reason to continue listing things, most of which end up being false, exaggerated and or made up for emotional points anyway. If we take into account people who use such examples, it can be safely assumed they are NPCs and not capable of using logic unless it is pre-programmed into them. This can be determined through their use of non-argument appeals to emotion, such as the examples given. Now, not all of these examples are self-deprecating, so to speak, but some deprecate others. Our examples so far are of people making their said ancestors look like as big of victims as possible, but there is another group that attempt to downplay those that conquered them. The largest example of this are the Native Americans. As of late it seems they have switched up from using the first strategy to things such as saying we taught them colonists how to bathe. One needs only look briefly into history to understand that this is an attempt to create a new argument, since old ones are not working anymore. However, it should be stated that this bathing non-argument stems from a time in Europe when the science, so to speak, believed changing into clean clothes frequently was how to prevent disease, not washing. Of course, neither colonists nor natives understood germ theory, thus why the natives were mostly wiped out by germs. People who call the colonists genociders are still correct, but you do give them way too much credit, as that supposed 100 million is a massive exaggeration, especially considering most deaths were from smallpox, also known as Mother Nature, thus cannot be counted. American colonists did not have any knowledge of germ theory, as stated prior, thus cannot take credit for any so-called biological warfare-related deaths. Now, the reasoning behind this non-argument switch-up is because it's tough to claim murder and colonizing are bad when you were killing your brethren in wars and sacrificing them to the sun before any colonists arrived, as well as having no concept of private property or self-ownership. In fact, if you want to base things on native beliefs, colonizing and killing them was a null action, as in order for it to be immoral in their eyes, so to speak, the two aforementioned concepts would have to exist within their societal concepts. Long story short, everyone very bad w. I do suppose that occurrences such as these have to do with simple human evolutionary tendencies to prefer those that are similar to themselves, with a mix of NPC brain thrown in. When someone is an NPC, thus not capable of logic, it is much easier for their primal tendencies to take over. So yes, it is pathetic people make these non-arguments, but it is not surprising. In fact, this video would probably warp drive their minds so easily they would have an insta-subconscious meltdown. One last example to discuss wraps back around to the beginning, and that is claiming things that are blatantly incorrect. No better example of this than that meme that has floated around for years showing supposed things invented by Africans, although I do believe the meme just says black people or something similar. Then you go to fact check. I recall the first one on there being air conditioning unit, and you find out that it was invented several decades before the meme's claim by a white or Jewish man. Of course, once again arguing over who invented what is a waste of time, but it is a weird phenomenon that people so desperately want to claim as much as possible for their ancestors, even if it's a blatantly lie. At the end of the day, it has to do with the evolutionary urges talked about earlier in combo with an NPC brain, but we now can see that there is a third part being the human ego. No matter how much you virtue signal about everyone being supposedly equal, the human brain wants to think of itself as better than any others. This is why humans will come up with any sort of bullcrap, such as the examples in this video, to bring others down, whether it's a valid or completely fabricated thing they use to do it. NPCs and real humans both deal with this, although real humans have a much easier time quelling the urge without needing to virtue signal either. It truly is a sad sight to see looking in on. But at the end of the day, you cannot control people being born as NPCs, so there is no need to fret about it, although it has been fun to discuss in this video. Anyways pimps, that is all for now, we out.